Доброго дня, шановні колеги. Hello, dear colleagues. Thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate your choice. We will be starting shortly. We'll give some time for all interested parties to connect, to take tea or coffee, and then we will start in a few minutes. Thank you.
Okay, I'm ready.
So thank you all for joining us today again. We're here to present the draft update of the National Energy and Climate Plan. We're hugely thankful and appreciative of your interest, support, and sustainable cooperation. Today is the fourth focused discussion. Previously, we met with CSOs, experts, also companies, and just recently, previous week with communities. Now we're meeting international partners, and we will be also having several stakeholder meetings around the NECP or draft NECP update. We are very thankful to the UK FCDO for this great opportunity, and we are thankful to the Ministry of Economy, Environment and Agriculture for this possibility to cooperate and for the possibility to put together the NECP in the first place, and now to offer an update to the NECP. Just a technical note on my side. My name is Anton Antonenko. I'm Vice President at DIXI Group. We are recording all the meetings, so this is on the record. We are also publishing them on the YouTube, just for the most of the people to be able to get to know NECP, its details, its update details, and everything around. We are also simultaneously interpreting this meeting, and we are very thankful to our colleague interpreters who are working today with us to make this possible. So please choose the interpretation option down below on the screen by clicking on the globe sign and then choosing between English and Ukrainian, and don't forget to mute the original audio. So now we're all set and ready, and let me please welcome to the first welcoming word Mr. Denis Zhanov, the head of the department on the climate change at the Ministry of Economy, Environment and Agriculture. Thank you very much, and please.
Thank you, Anton, for introduction, and I'm happy to greet everyone here. And thank you very much for taking the time and this opportunity to join today's discussion. On behalf of the Ministry of Economy, Environment and Agriculture, please allow me to express my sincere appreciation for your effective and consistent support. The NECP is a strategic document, yet at the same time it's highly practical. So it's clearly outlined objectives we have set and the pathways we intend to follow to achieve them. And moreover, it enables systematic monitoring of progress toward these goals. For the Ministry of Economy, the NECP is a particular importance. It demonstrates how the economy is evolving and allow us to anticipate and prepare for these changes rather than merely reacting to them. The NECP also serves to a platform for cross-sectional cooperation, bringing together energy, climate, transport, agriculture, and many other areas. So it enables us to identify synergies among these sectors and address potential inconsistencies. And finally, the NECP is aligned with the European policy framework. The introduction for such process in Ukraine reflects the practical steps we are taking towards integration with common European policies. Ukraine first adopted its national energy and climate plan in June 2024. Since then, Ukraine has established a formal NECP reporting progress and submitted its first report to the Energy Community Secretariat. The government has also established the Intergovernmental Working Group, bringing together all relevant public authorities to ensure coordinated implementation. In addition, the International High-Level Advisory Group on NECP implementation continues its work. Upon adopting the NECP, Ukraine undertook a commitment to update the document. Three remarks. There were expectations that we would be able to incorporate additional information, data, and further detail. Significant progress has indeed been made, and however, we continued full-scale aggression by Russia has limited our ability to expand the document further in terms of data and analysis. Nevertheless, we remain fully engaged and closely monitor developments. By the end of last year, the working group coordinated by the analytical center DIXI Group and supported by the UK's FCDO prepared a draft update for the NECP. Following internal coordination with the ministry, the draft text was published on the ministry website for public consultation. And at the same time, implementation of NECP does not cease with its adoption or update. What matters most to us what matter most to us are tangible implementation results. In this regard, the Ministry of Economy, together with our ministries and with the support of DIXI Group and our British partners, of course, has organized several road shows and investment forums. During these events, we presented the key provisions of NECP, our objectives and pathways to achieve them, while Ukrainian companies showcased their projects and thought investment opportunities. We are sincerely grateful to our partners in the United Kingdom, France, and Sweden for hosting these roadshows. We committed to continue and scaling up this initiative, and therefore we would be very much welcome your interest in working with us in attracting investments for projects implemented with the NECP framework. In addition, we are making efforts to foster a broad dialogue on energy and climate issues. We stand ready to facilitate comprehensive information exchange and ensure that relevant inputs are duly reflected in future reporting and update the NECP. And we sincerely thank you and look forward to fruitful cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zhanov. Thank you. We indeed appreciate cooperation and happy to have this opportunity. Let me also frame a bit our discussion today. We will start by describing the document and go in dimension by dimension and then end in with the modeling results. And we will mostly welcome your questions and remarks and comments in the chat box. You can also use this option, click in the chat down below the screen. And after all the presentations, we will open up the time for questions. So please raise your virtual hand and we will, of course, give you the floor. Let me just give a remark that today's meeting is focused on international partners. So despite it's fully open and everyone, of course, can attend, we will give the priority to the international partners first in answering questions, and then we will take all the rest questions. So please be patient, carry on with us, and we will try to cover everything. So let me start with giving the floor to my colleague Roman Nitsovich, the research director at DIXI Group, to describe the whole document. Please, Roman.
Many thanks, Anton. The Ministry of Economy representative, Mr. Zhanov, made a great introduction into what NECP is and why it is highly relevant for Ukraine. So I will just explain a bit why are we doing this update right now. So the governance regulation of the European Union does not require this update, as the NECP should be reviewed every 5 years. However, we were strongly recommended by the European Commission and the Energy Community Secretariat 2 years ago to have such update. given several considerations. One of them is, of course, extraordinary circumstances of developing this document. I mean, the realities of war and respective impact on the energy sector and ever-changing landscape. Second is, of course, issues with data availability and quality due to the martial law restrictions and impact of the war. So currently, for instance, we have a better understanding in terms of emissions reduction projections in such sectors as land use change, and forestry, which we didn't have back in 2024. Of course, we have a lot of new policies and measures adopted or revised, and my colleagues will explain what are the changes. And we, of course, have took into account the results of the monitoring performed by DIXI Group and the reporting submitted by Ukraine a year ago. With this in mind, just a quick reminder on the structure of the plan. So there is a section which is called analytical basis, which describes projections with both existing and planned policies and measures. And the modeling team will explain what are the outputs of this assessment. And of course, we have a section dedicated to objectives and targets, as well as a catalog of policies and measures to achieve them across all 5 dimensions of the energy union. Here is a brief overview of the goals and indicators. Those marked in bold are those which have been updated. And yeah, so this is just a snapshot, and my colleagues will explain in more detail why and how these indicators we arrived at. And one more slight reminder about the specifics of the NECP on 2 scenarios, which have to be modeled and described. And the one scenario is with existing policies and measures, or WIM or WEM, which includes both implemented and adopted ones. And the second scenario is with additional policies and measures, so we call it WAM scenario, which contains planned options which are currently under discussion and have a realistic or quite high chance of being adopted. Of course, we focused here on the obligations on the way to EU membership, as well as other options which are on quite advanced stage of consideration. So with this in mind, let me pass the floor to colleagues on specific dimensions.
Thank you very much, Roman. We will start with the energy efficiency dimension, and I welcome to the floor Olena Baida. Please, Olena, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, dear colleagues. Thank you for joining us today. I will briefly present the energy efficiency dimension. It comprises 31 policies and measures which cover the topics related to energy efficiency at the national and local level, financial instruments devoted to implementation of energy efficiency measures, measures which are aimed to improve the energy performance of buildings, energy audits for buildings, industrial processes, and transport. And this dimension also covers the district heating sector, as well as the uptake of cogeneration units and heat pumps. Next slide, please. We would start going into some details, first of all, on the targets. In the update NECP, we proposed to the government to update the headline indicative energy efficiency targets related to primary energy consumption and final energy consumption. The current version of NECP already made these targets kind of more realistic comparing to those which were established by the decision of the Ministerial Council of Energy Community from 2022. So the current version already takes into account the demographic changes and also the structural changes, which deeply affect the energy consumption. In this version of NECP, we suggest to update it once again. The reason for that would be the updated information received for modeling. And also another key reason is we suggest to establish the targets according to the BAM scenario. In contrast to the current version when the targets are established according to the VAM scenario. So this was the proposal of our European colleagues received during the process of monitoring NECP. And the idea is to take as much of the proposals into account as possible. Another changes related to targets is related to the fact that government officially established yearly targets for end-use energy savings and also annual targets for savings which shall be achieved by renovations of the central government buildings. So in this version of NECP, we already have this officially established yearly targets, which we basically just provide the cumulative savings in the NECP. And the key risk which relates to targets is actually achieving of the cumulative energy savings target. Current instruments which are devoted to achieving this target are Energy Efficiency Fund and Decarbonization Fund. And we see that if they continue operations at the current level, we will hardly achieve our established indicators. Next slide, please. So turning from targets to policies. Roman or Anton, please. Next slide. Thank you. Yeah. So in the current version of NECP, we have more financial instruments devoted to energy efficiency in the VAM scenario. So there are 2 new state target programs adopted recently. The first one relates to thermal modernization of buildings, and the another one targets energy modernization at energy heat producers. Well, basically, it's wider, but the name is such. And also, the current version of NECP, of course, takes into account the activities of the Decarbonization Fund, and the description of its activities are adjusted to the reality, not to the plans that it would be a state target program, but now it's a separate entity. And this is reflected in the NECP. The NECP also reflects the progress which was achieved in the energy performance of buildings policies, namely establishment of the NECP standards and the launch of the National Buildings Database. The key policies which we suggest to pay specific attention by the government to effectively implement energy efficiency policies as a whole and to achieve our targets are ensuring sustainable financing of the existing funds and state target programs, adoption of the legal framework for energy efficiency obligation schemes. This relates to under delivery of the end-use savings. And this is why we need new instruments which would help to achieve that target. And another issue which is pending is the assessment of potential for for efficient district heating and high efficient cogeneration. So while we have policies which are aimed to speeding up the uptake of cogeneration, we don't have this national-wide assessment. So we are lacking the analytical basis for evidence-based policy decisions, and I believe this is one of the key issues which the government should focus their attention on. And as regards to new policies, they include the qualification scheme for energy auditors, the regulation of installation of heat pumps, and also the new proposal by the Ministry of Development, which is the National Action Plan for Modernization and Decarbonization of District Heating Systems. This is a brief overview. Yeah, and I'm ready to answer all the questions which may arise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olena. Please take time to also look at the chat and ask questions there, or you can take this opportunity and do it by voice after all the presentations. Just a slight reminder to our audience, as well as let me mention that the draft NECP update is already published as a text on the website of the Ministry of Economy in Ukrainian, but we also did the unofficial translation, which I believe, sent to all our participants before this meeting. If not, please let us know. We will be happy to do so. And now we will jump to the next dimension, which is the internal energy market. This is also the area that is covered by our experts, two experts working there, Елизавета Badanova and Bogdan Serebrennikov. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. So in the terms of the internal energy market, we just have to remind you that this area is separated, let's say, into markets. So we have electricity market. We also address natural gas market and slightly hydrogen and also slightly oil. But also generally the dimension is subdivided into two main topics, which would be infrastructure development and market integration. So starting with the targets, with the objectives, we can say that at least so we divided them into three sections: the common objectives, the electricity market target objectives, and the objectives related to oil and gas and hydrogen. Why did we separate the common objectives? Because at some point in time, considering that we are, let's say, preaching sector coupling, some of those would be quite similar for both electricity and gas and should be done in sync. So in terms of common objectives, they didn't change much from the currently adopted plan. They stand at the moment as a full and comprehensive integration with the EU energy markets in terms of legislation and legislative practice. The second, formation of market prices for energy carriers for all categories of consumers, then protection of energy consumers, meaning vulnerable customers, and also energy poverty, and the development of competition in energy markets. Here on last two objectives, let's say we are still considering adding some indicators because unfortunately the previous NESP had an assignment for certain authorities to include those, but they haven't been included. And you understand very well that without indicators, it's actually difficult to track those objectives. So in terms of the natural gas market and hydrogen and oil, from the infrastructure side, we have we have several projects. For natural gas, we have a topic related to sufficient interconnection between the EU energy community and Ukraine, and also a target related to repurposing, discovering the repurposing potential. For the oil, we keep the Brody Adamova Zastava oil project, and also another project related to the transportation of different oil categories other than Urals via the southern branch of the Druzhba pipeline. Hydrogen is represented by the project that has actually grown since the adopted NESP, and it's now the Central European Hydrogen Corridor, which has a special status with the Commission. And also other possible paths to transport hydrogen. In terms of the targets related to natural gas and also other types of gases, renewable gases as well. The target for biomethane stands the same. It's 100 million by 2030 for the WEM scenario and 1 billion 1 billion cubic meters for WAM scenario. For natural gas, the same targets as in previous NESP apply, 21.5 BCM by 2030 in WAM scenario, and anything above that in the WAM scenario. I mean, because the 21.5 is already quite significant. And also two other important targets are there. One, ensuring 100% gas metering, meaning physically installing meters for all consumers. Now we have around 700,000 meters which are not installed with the households at the territory of Ukraine, which is under the Ukrainian control. And also, secondly, reliability and completeness of commercial gas accounting. We have to work on that. Next slide, please. In terms of the policies, the change in policies and measures on the oil, gas, and hydrogen side, there are certain changes apart from, let's say, additions regarding the updates. First, we fix the task to transpose the gas decarbonization package. When the first NESP was adopted, it was just in the making. So now we have this as a task. Then two new policies are adopted related to the development of potential for hydrogen, meaning production, transportation, storage, and consumption. Proper analysis, and the same way, proper analysis of the potential for the application of CCUS technologies. We understand that some analysis has been carried out as part of energy strategy, for instance, but I don't think that it has been really accounting for everything that we have at the moment, and also technologies develop, etc., etc. New policy for effective regulation of oil pipelines, because previously we have some rules regarding that, but we need to properly decarbonize the sector. Optimization of oil and gas infrastructure, it moved from WAM to WAM because a new law was adopted after the first NESP was adopted, plus we supplemented with repurposing, with the need to enable repurposing. Gas quality, we underline the need to revise regulatory approach, because currently there is a lot of gas which accesses the system and which is below the established technical requirements. And then the system is based on the fact that each operator pays each other fines, and then this becomes quite weird, it's quite ineffective, I would say. So this needs to be reconsidered. Plus, we need to finally adopt technical regulation for gas without at the same time subjecting it to market supervision, which would be not in contravention of the EU law. Then transition to energy unit. We underscore the need to do it before the end of the martial law. Balancing moved from WAM to WAM because regulator actually implemented neutrality. For gas production, we add certain measures which were recommended to us by market participants. We will see how it will be, perceived by state authorities, especially considering that we also suggest an update to the national revenue strategy, considering that it suggested a complete change of taxation without actually proposing any, let's say, form or model for this taxation of extractives. For biomethane, we add some additional measures from the gas decarbonization package, also underscore the benefits of clustering, and of course, underscore the need for further discussions with the EU regarding traceability and mass balance. And finally, unbundling of gas distribution system operators. It moved from WAM to WAM. Because we were informed of a special roadmap that was adopted for this purpose. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And now over to Bogdan.
Yeah. Hello, dear colleagues. Roman, can you switch to the previous slide focused on targets? Yes. Regarding the electricity market targets, the set of targets remains almost the same. We specified that interconnectivity between Ukrainian and NSOE grids should be at least at the level of at least 10% by 2030. And also NECP includes several projects of mutual interests, which should support achieving these targets. Also, we align their target regarding renewables in electricity generation mix with the updated national renewable action plan. And now the number is over 29% in the electricity mix by 2030. The other targets remains almost the same. So we can move to the policy slide. Roman, can you switch the slide? Okay, regarding policies and measures in the internal electricity market, there are over 20 different policies and measures. Almost all of them were updated according the new legislative and regulatory developments adopted during the previous 1.5 years after the NECP was adopted by Cabinet of Ministers. So we grouped these policies into 5 sections. The first is related to market reforming, then integration, networks, generation, and new business models, supporting the integration of new generation into the system and markets. You can see the updates we included in the current draft version of NECP. Let me briefly run through them. Regarding the pricing, so we have several policies aiming the liberalization of prices and make them more flexible and reflective. Although this real-time pricing, harmonization of price limits, and dynamic pricing for non-household consumers majorly depend on the adoption by the Parliament of the draft law, which is now under consideration. This draft law should transpose the major part of clean energy package regarding the electricity market reforming and integration. Regarding the electricity supply to protected consumers, Ukraine launched the special mechanism securing the due payment for electricity supply through special banking accounts and funds allocation algorithm, as well as several amendments was made to the terms of electricity supply by supplier of last resort. Likewise, the previous section integration is also depend very much on the adoption by the Verkhovna Rada this integration draft law, which is under consideration. Regarding the networks, one of the most challenging group of policies because of the wartime. However, we also updated several policies. The policy regarding smart grid deployment was updated with measures that transmission system and distribution system operators are going to implement in 2026 and throughout 2030, as well as stimulating the regulation of DSOs. This policy was updated because a regulator implemented the so-called limited regime of such a policy during martial law. The main changes happened in the section devoted to decentralized generation. A lot of policies moved from WAM to WAM, and this is very good because they are now active and effective. The dedicated 2035 distributed generation strategy was adopted by the Cabinet of Ministers, outlining the goals in this field. Also some supporting mechanism, as well as funding programs and other supporting measures. Regarding the stimulating of renewable distributed generation deployment, several national and international funding tools and programs appeared. That is why we included into NECP. Then I would highlight the two quite effective policies, let's say, in terms of commissioning of new generation, the fastest tenders for construction of generation capacity. It's moved from WAM to WAM because a pilot auction was launched and finally completed. And we expect it to attract investment for over 300 megawatts of new flexible capacities. And new policy was also included into NECP the special auctions for long-term procurement of ancillary services, meaning that TSO procured these services for 5-year period and ensuring the stable cash flow for implementers. This policy appeared quite effective, and we expect it will bring to our market over 800 megawatts of new flexible capacity. And the next policy, the risking tool, should supplement the previous policy, but it is in the making. So we refer to WAM. Also, a lot of legislation amendments was made by government and the regulator, aiming to streamline the permitting procedures for distributed generation. We reflect all of them here in NECP, as well as new policy also included devoted to reservation of connection capacity for new generation units. And in terms of new business models, aggregation moved from WAM to WAM as the process is going on. Some aggregators appeared on the market. One policy was deleted as ineffective. Also, the policy regarding active consumers was amended by several supporting mechanisms and streamlining procedures for them. Next slide, please. Regarding the cross-cutting policies, we moved the NERC independence policy from WAM to WAM as some legislative developments was made, exempting the NERC decision from necessity to register in a single state register, as well as 2 draft laws are registered in the Verkhovna Rada, aimed at strengthening independence of the regulator. Regarding remit regulation, a lot has been done in terms of primary and secondary legislation. However, we highlighted that the full compliance should be also ensured. Regarding the policy on promoting the development of new cross-border connections, we updated NECP by the transposing of the draft law, which is now in Verkhovna Rada and have a good chances to be adopted in the near future. And regarding the consumer protection, we also updated 2 policies on energy poverty and subsidies to vulnerable consumers. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bogdan. And we will now switch to the new dimension, which is decarbonization. And I would like to welcome to this floor Yulia Oharenko.
Thank you, Anton. Good time of the day to everyone. I will briefly present key updates in the NECP under the decarbonization dimension. So first of all, 2030 targets remain largely the same, but importantly, climate neutrality by 2050 was added in the new version. And this target was introduced by the Framework Climate Policy Law, and it is fully aligned with the EU long-term policy goal. Overall, decarbonization dimension covers all key GHG emissions and absorption sectors, and the dimension itself incorporates 43 policies and measures, but all dimensions are very interlinked in the NECP, and other dimensions, especially internal energy market and energy efficiency, also have important policies which drive decarbonization. And you can see in this figure that internal energy market actually has 26 policies, and energy efficiency dimensions covers 18 policies important for decarbonization. So overall, about 100 policies in the NECP are driving Ukraine's economy towards decarbonization. What are key highlights in the decarbonization dimension? First of all, it covers strengthening carbon pricing instruments. So it includes both carbon tax reform and also increase of the excise taxes on fuels. It also covers implementation of the emission trading scheme, as well as a new climate policy instruments and measures. It, of course, incorporates plans on the reduction of the methane emissions and emissions from the large combustion plants. It has a quite expanded list of policies in the land use change and forestry, agriculture and waste sector. And of course, expands just transition policy and adaptation to climate change. It covers development of renewable sectors, electric transport, as well as low carbon municipal transport. Next slide. And now I will briefly highlight key updates. So overall, in the decarbonization dimension, there were a lot of revisions and updates over the whole text, covering both previously existed policies and introduction of new ones. And most importantly, we can say that many recommendations which were impossible to incorporate back in 2024 are now covered in the new updated version. First, just transition policy was considerably revised and expanded. It now covers not only coal regions, but also offers a longer-term perspective of potentially expanding this policy to other regions dependent on fossil fuels and carbon-intensive sectors. And also now this policy is also now deeply integrated in the whole document. So it's not only in one section, but in several sections and analytical part of the NECP as well. Adaptation policy was also considerably revised and now covered in several policies, not just one. GHG emissions projections for agriculture and waste sectors were updated, and most importantly, GHG emission projections for the LULUCF sector were developed. So there was a gap in the previous NECP version because at the time it was prepared, there were no GHG inventory of Ukraine. There was a huge uncertainty in the forestry sector because of the war, and it was impossible to make even indicative estimates in the previous version. Now, updated version has those indicator estimates. They're of course very rough, but nevertheless are very important to have because this way we will be able to have to get overall projections for Ukraine, so we have a clear picture where are we heading with GHG emissions. Also, 5 policies in the decarbonization dimension were switched from WAMP to WAM because of considerable progress in their implementation. This refers to implementation of the global methane pledge in Ukraine, again, just transition policy, adaptation policy, as well as development of organic crop production and demining and forest restoration after hostilities. And 14 new policies were added. Next slide. On this slide, there's a list of new policies in the field of LULUCF, agriculture, forestry, waste, as well as cross-cutting policies such as excise tax increase, implementation of carbon credit mechanism, implementation of measures to reduce emissions of ozone-depleting substances and fluorinated gases. And next slide. And finally, I'll just briefly mention key updates in the renewable sector. So 3 policies were switched from WAM to WAM because of considerable progress in their implementation. There's an auction system for allocation of support quotas for renewable sources, guarantees of origins of electricity from renewable energy sources, stimulated the use of liquid biofuels in the transport sector, and 2 new policies were added. This introduction of sustainability criteria for biofuels, bioliquids, and biomass, and establishment of legislative and regulatory framework for the development of offshore wind energy. And an important update was also made to one policy on the introduction of renewable acceleration areas and simplification of permitting procedures for renewables. That is All from my side, very briefly. I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Julia. So let me just briefly remind you that there is a chat option during the presentations. There's already quite a discussion there, so please join it. You can type in into the chat box all your questions, comments, or observations, or wait until the presentations are done and we have 3 more pieces to go. And then you can ask your questions by voice after raising your virtual hand. And now we will roll into the research, innovation, and competitiveness section. And I welcome to the floor Mykola Yakovenko, please.
Hello, dear colleagues. So indeed, one of the 5 main pillars of the National Energy and Climate Plans is research, innovation, and competitiveness. And Ukraine's NECP, of course, includes this section as well. So in our case, we mainly focus our policies and targets on around 3 main pillars here. So the development and financing of innovation in research. So this pillar focuses mainly on actually reducing the skills gap and improving the educational and competitiveness of the general research programs in climate and energy sphere in Ukraine. So mainly focused on modernization of the programs, enabling efficient financing, and also like full access to both EU and European grants. The second important pillar is implementation of clean energy solution and low carbon technologies. Again, we are fully aware of this of certain need to bridge the gap in technological development and in bringing up the competitiveness of Ukrainian energy and climate technologies. That's why the section mainly focuses on supporting corporate investments in climate and energy technologies, enabling new forms of public-private partnership in this process, and developing the initiatives taking into account the EU practices and available options for cooperation. So let's say the available funding and access to venture funds from the EU, as well as the development of similar stimulus and solutions in Ukraine, for example, through the decarbonization and energy efficiency fund formed by carbon payments. And finally, we also focus on increasing the general competitiveness of Ukrainian energy and climate technologies, education, and main industries. So here we are looking at the main nexus between the technological development and science and enabling necessary infrastructure. So also facilitating export opportunities for Ukraine through achieving comparable standards with the EU markets and also growing venture capital inflow into Ukraine's clean technologies and energy and climate industries. So those are like the main pillars that has been included in plan since its initial version. And may I ask the next slide, please? Yeah, and while monitoring the progressing, the initial version of the plan was adopted, we generally notice more or less moderate progress along all this, alongside this pillars. So mainly we can see some gradual increase of funding for research and for new industrial opportunities, some rapprochement between the standards in Ukraine, of the technological standards in Ukraine and the EU, as well as some better opportunities for capital inflow into these areas of Ukraine. At the same time, we also notice several important gaps and barriers that mainly additional measures scenario should address. So first of all, the additional measure scenario suggests bigger focus on small and medium enterprises and their access to the costs and opportunities for green transformation. Another very important area is restoration of state aid rules. As many of you may know, that since the beginning of the full-scale war, the state aid reporting and monitoring mechanisms were suspended in Ukraine. We believe that now we are ready in the momentum to renovate these activities and basically bring back the state aid monitoring and reporting, also align it with the best European practices and the new developments in the EU, mainly the new state aid rules in line with the Clean Industrial Deal adopted in the EU last summer. Eventually, this area also focuses more on developing mechanisms for investment in renewable energy and decarbonization technologies. So also focusing on enabling like investment to high risky projects, but with the promising solutions. So this is the main areas of changes in this plan.
Thank you very much, Mykola. And now we are looking into the very serious topic of the plan. So this is the energy security, and I'm happy to give back the floor to Roman Nitsovich.
Thank you, Anton. It is indeed last but not least the dimension of the plan before we move to the modeling part. So definitely you see that the contents is largely yes, so it's aligned with the regulation, except the goals related to increased flexibility of energy system are represented in the internal energy market dimension, as you may have seen. However, here we have a quite a unique Ukrainian goal of physical protection of critical infrastructure facilities and ensuring their resilience during the martial law. As for the updates, definitely took into account the progress with implementing the policy on creating minimum stocks of crude oil and petroleum products, which, by the way, during the martial law application can be created in countries, EU member states neighboring Ukraine. And those member states which border these member states, so up to 50% of the stocks can be created there, of course, subject to several conditions. And the first one is, of course, the availability of technical capacities to store these stocks. We, of course, have taken into account the great input provided by the screening process in the preparation for accession negotiations. So using this input, we expanded the set of measures on implementation of acquis in terms of security of supply and other areas by the EU Network Code on Electricity Emergency and Restoration. We have also updated several policies with new legal framework existing. So we have now new regulation or new order of the Cabinet of Ministers on construction, repair, and other measures for engineering and technical protection of critical infrastructure facilities. So the list of those facilities which shall be protected with reinforced concrete and other types of protection against drones and missile attacks have been expanded. We also have taken into account the new drafts of programs related to management of spent nuclear fuel and radioactive waste management. We also have revised the policy on ensuring cybersecurity, given the significant change in framework legislation and secondary legal acts, which reinforce this area and aim for compliance with the EU rules. And as related to nuclear power plants decommissioning, we added a bit of detail on ensuring the financial reserve is secured against inflation as provided by the applicable legislation. So with this in mind, over to Anton.
Thank you very much, Roman. And we are now up to the most visually interesting and also future talent, so to say, part of the presentation. So let me welcome to the floor Andriy Semenyuk, and please, Andriy, tell us more about the modeling results.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Yeah, so the general approach to modeling NECP scenarios has not changed since the last time. There are two scenarios, VAM and VAM. We have updated the economic and demographic forecasts, and energy service demand projections have been adjusted accordingly. As we can see from the figure, the GDP forecast has decreased, and which significantly affected all the results. In overall, the obsolescence of economic assumptions was one of the main reasons why we began updating the plan. Based on the new commodity markets outlook, we adjusted global import and export prices for all energy resources. We have refined the assessment of the damage caused by the Russia to the electricity and heat production sector, and as well to the coal, oil, and gas extraction. We have updated the cost and operational characteristics of energy technologies in our model, and as well as numerous improvements to the model have been made regarding the functioning of the electricity system. And thus, the model and NECP scenarios now are aligned with the scenarios of the second NDC and the low emission development strategy, which have been approved recently. In the NECP, we also use a set of updated assumptions. It is that the restoration of sovereignty and territorial integrity, occurs by 2030 and followed by the gradual reintegration of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the commissioning of large and small modular reactor units for new nuclear power plant is possible after 2035, and the same applies to the carbon capture, utilization, and storage technologies, as well as the direct air capture. And by 2030, only a limited transition to low carbon technologies in metallurgy and other industries is possible, while promising technologies will become widely represented after 2030. In VAM scenario, the carbon price gradually approaches the European Union level, and it will reach about 150 euros per ton in 2050. And also we anticipate the production of at least 1 billion cubic meters of biomethane by 2030. Next slide, please. These updates have led to a lower overall energy demand in both scenarios compared to the current NECP, and particularly for electricity, as shown in the graph on the right. At the same time, electricity demand by 2050 in the VAM scenario almost doubles due to the decarbonization measures. The difference specifically in the electricity generation structure between those two scenarios in the updated NECP lies in a significant increase in wind and solar generation, and as well as in a complete phase out of coal by 2035. In a VAM scenario also, nuclear power provides a larger volume of energy, but in total generation mix, its share decreases by 2050. Next slide. In the current version of NECP and in the updated, the increase in the carbon tax serves as an effective incentive to reduce GHG emissions across all scenarios and all sectors of the economy, and the visible effect we can already see by 2030, as on the graph below. And by 2050, emissions levels could decrease by nearly 2/3 compared to the 2020 level. And the electricity and heat production sector practically reach the net zero emissions. The second graph on the right reflects final energy consumption, and we can see how the additional planned measures for energy efficiency, renewable energy development, and other NECP dimensions in the VAM scenario can allow for a more efficient reduction in energy needs compared to the VAM scenario through mostly electrification and direct substitution of fossil fuels. Next slide, please. This slide shows a comparison of investment needs between the current and updated NECP, and a quite significant difference stands out, which is mostly driven by a reduction of the planning period by 2 years, also by the revision of the macroeconomic factors and the lower forecasted energy demand, and by the reassessment we did on the investment capabilities of business and households during wartime and in the subsequent period up to 2030. So because of this, the bulk of required financing and technological modernization is shifted to the period after 2030, and the estimated level of investment of 6 billion euros annually up to 2030 under the VAM scenario is comparable to the total volume of capital investments in Ukraine prior to the full-scale invasion. That's all for me.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much, Andriy. By this, we conclude the presentation part, and we are happy to start the Q&A part. And I'm sure you have a lot of questions, as I see in the chat already the first ones. So please raise your virtual hands, and after a call, please open up the mic, camera, and introduce yourself. Oh, I see the first hand from Mr. Wilfried Damm. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I want to come back on the energy efficiency part, and I'm wondering why you don't add metering by apartment as a bold policy step, which is being required by the energy efficiency directive of the EU anyway. So if you want to join EU by 27, this should be considered, and it should be considered also in the modeling. That's one question. And the second question is, in the modeling, in the VAM scenario, solar is pretty low, despite you have last year 1.2 gigawatt of new installments. And I think it might pick up in the future much faster due to the low cost in comparison to nuclear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Damm. And I'll probably first give the floor to Lena and then ask Andriy to also speak a bit on the modeling. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I will start answering the first part of the question. So regarding the metering, our current law on metering of heat and hot water regulates two types of metering. The first one we call commercial metering. This relates to the metering at the building level. And the second one is distributional metering. This is exactly individual meters in the apartments and heat allocators. So the current law prescribes that all new buildings shall be like at all new buildings, individual meters should be installed. Yes, this is Article 5.
But what is the bulk of the old building?
Regards the existing buildings is that heat allocators should be installed in case of major renovations. So why would not we include a requirement to install heat allocators at all existing buildings? First of all, my personal belief was that we haven't finished our homework. So we haven't finished the coverage with the commercial metering at the buildings level. Currently, we have 86.7% coverage, and the uptake level is extremely low. So during the last 5 years, this percentage increased only by 4 percentage points. So if we will continue with this pace, like we will need 13 more years to finish with the commercial metering. So my personal opinion is they need, like the state authorities would need to find financial resources to close the gap with the commercial metering first. And regarding the heat allocators, like an alternative could be, for example, including this as a mandatory measure to the program of the Energy Efficiency Fund. So currently, Energy Efficiency Fund includes this measure, but it's always optional measure. So, for example, a first step towards kind of market saturation and secondly, also increasing the knowledge of the population about the heat allocators, about their benefits, could be like those like first movers, which are the participants of the Energy Efficiency Fund programs. But because this measure is like very seldomly applied, in fact, in Ukraine, unfortunately.
But it's mandatory by the EU directive, so you have to do it anyway. And the Energy Efficiency Fund is covering only very few buildings in reality. So you need to make it mandatory for entire Ukraine. And it's probably the only single one policy which would save about 1 billion cubic meter gas annually. And you're lacking in gas, you're lacking in CO2 reduction, and this is the one step which would be really give major results very fast. So
Yes,
please
I
put it
agree
into the
with.
policy suggestions.
Okay, thank you. Like one for a last comment. Another issue with the heat allocators is the need to agree by the majority of homeowners to buy and install this heat allocators. According to current Ukrainian regulations, there should be at least 50% coverage of the heat allocators in order for them to be used for this distributional metering. So if we want to have this policy,
change the tariff. That's the remaining ones who have no heat allocators pay the remaining bills. Then you will see how fast everyone is, let's say, looking
this
forward.
is true. Yeah, agreed. Thank you.
That's something that's been on the table for the past few decades, right? So let me also now ask Andrei to comment the modeling results.
Yeah, can I just briefly ask to repeat the question so I understand this properly? Mr. Winfried, you asked why is there so few solar capacities?
Yeah, and I ask in the chat, what is the price, the capex assumption for solar and for nuclear and for wind and batteries?
Yeah, so we refer for the capex as for the solar and wind in particular at the Danish Energy Agency. Technology catalogs and all prices can be seen in the text of NECP in the annexes. There is a large table. So like I'd say that price forecast for solar and wind is pretty optimistic in this case. As well as for nuclear, is just that we refer for its cost, not for the foreign consultants, but for the data of the Ministry of Energy and Energoatom. So I'd say it's about 4,500 euros per kilowatt. Yeah, so that can be considered very optimistic forecast, but that's the position we have and numbers we have, so like this.
But this is the main assumption and driver for your model. So if you increase it to the realistic figures, like we experience all over the world, your model will completely flip. And if you take in the realistic current solar prices and battery prices, again, we will have a complete different outcome. And sadly, the current modeling is assuming that Ukraine remains on a nuclear path, despite the high cost and it's not giving any solution for the upcoming winters and years. So we are preventing right now with the modeling stronger investments into renewable, which would save and secure Ukraine decentralized approach.
I wouldn't say that we prevent investment in the renewables, because both the capacities and production of the renewables, they grow several times as it from now. And yes, nuclear power is also developed, but it's developed, I would say, rather on very modest scale compared to wind and solar, because now we assume about 8 gigawatts, and by 2030 it would be like 10, and then in 5 years they doubles, and by the end of the modeling horizon there are a couple of dozens of gigawatts both for wind and solar, and it's uncomparable to the gigawatts of the new nuclear. But yes, you are completely right, because nuclear is very sensitive to the price changes, and we did a lot of our own research, like discovering how the nuclear development can change on basing only on the cost and on other parameters. But here in these scenarios, we don't play with any sensitivity. We need to apply some solid assumptions, which we will use in 2 scenarios. So we referred to the official data, to the official position. So this is the price of the nuclear and the results of this price. You can see in the results.
Thank you.
But can you recheck with the current minister? Probably it's still coming from the old minister.
Let me just clarify on the
special reasons.
Let me clarify on the procedure. We are in the formal procedure with the NECP draft. So as at the same time with the public hearings that are going on, there's also a interministerial consultation. So all the ministries send their comments and corrections, and the group of forces will be working on them in the coming weeks. Hopefully not months. So we will be hearing from all the ministries in charge of all the parts of the NECP as well as other state agencies, and we'll be happy to discuss with them and take this further to them. Let me also give the floor to Roman Nisovich to answer this question.
Yeah, I just wanted to specify that we are focusing on applicable strategies, and the applicable 2050 energy strategy emphasizes the role of nuclear along with renewables. So we have to stick to that. When and if there will be a new approach and a new strategy, possibly, we don't know it, then we will have this into account. But I think that it would be a subject for the next NECP by 2040. Again, if and when the strategic approach of Ukrainian government would change. We see the discussions related to nuclear, also in Germany, by the way. So let's see how it goes. Again, in the internal energy market, you've seen the path towards liberalization, and I think that this would greatly impact the business decisions and the decisions which capacities would be installed and commissioned in the system.
Thank you, Roman. I think we also have a question in the chat from Mr. Yigit Takhmisoglu. Mr. Takhmisoglu, if you'd like to ask the question on your own, please.
Oh, sure. Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. My question relates to the assumptions made in the industrial sector regarding the recovery of the metallurgical assets in the temporarily occupied territories, and also in terms of the existing aging primary steel assets and their decommissioning. What were the assumptions made? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Takhmisoglu, for your question. I'd say that we already consider industrial capacities in the occupied territories as damaged and probably lost. And after the recovery of these territories, these assets, they can be rebuilt, but like rebuilt as in new factories. And this also, I can say about current assets that we still obtain, that they will went through their modernization, especially in the farm scenario where there is a carbon tax imposed, and like the decarbonization of the industries is more evident and rapid.
Thank you. So it is more focused on modernization of the existing ones rather than, because some of them, I don't have the numbers, but some of them are nearing their end of life. So is there an assumption on, let's say, if one asset is end of life, will there be an investment on, let's say, electric arc furnace or DRI? So what would you say?
There is indeed assumptions about their end of life, and in both scenarios, some technologies, after they reach this end of life, they need to be replaced. In VAM scenario, which is like the basic, they are being replaced by the almost same technologies, but just new with a higher efficiency and so on, but not to very low carbon. And in VAM scenarios, as I said, due to the action of carbon tax and policies, they are being replaced by low carbon electric arc furnaces, DRI, and so on.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Let me ask you again whether there are questions in the audience. Please signal to me with raising the virtual hands. Let me remind that we still focus on the international partners and would like to give you priority to ask. I see several questions from the company representatives in the chat, but just giving you the last moment and chance to have the international partners first rule. Okay, I don't see any virtual hands. If this changes, we will take questions. Let me ask Mr. Alexander Hrechko from Ukrhydro. If you are with us, would you like to ask your question by turning on the camera and mic? Mr. Hrechko? Okay, I'll probably pick up this question and translate shortly. So the question is on the modeling as well. It questions the hydro energy, why it's not in the current modeling, in particular the hydro and pump hydro that are maneuver capacities, and they have to be considered in the modeling. So, Andrei, if you could answer to that, please.
Yes, sure. Hydro capacities are not falling out from our modeling. In any case, they are described and they act as existing capacities, and they will maintain their production by the 2050, and large hydro plants, I'd say they can even be rebuilt. No, not rebuilt, but we see some development in the new capacities. It can be considered as a rebuilding of the Kakhovka plant. It can be seen as another project, but there are a couple of hundred of megawatts which are developed by the end of the horizon, not by the 2030, but later, after 2040. It is just that we don't see the rapid development of hydro, because there are a lot of new technologies which can help to balance system better than hydro. And this also can be a matter of the cost, because hydro is not too it's not very cheap in terms of the balancing capacity, but this is the result. But yes, we have hydro plants and we have hydro production in both scenarios. It's
okay. And one more question on modeling, as you anticipated, and thank you, Mrs. Matilda Alchanovsky. If you'd like to ask the question.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, so first of all, thank you for the very good presentation. It's very interesting, and for the work done. Just a small question, and maybe sorry if you already mentioned it, but on the projections of the needs in 2030 in terms of installed capacity, what are the projections you've made in this important strategy plan? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Andriy, over to you again.
for your questions. So but we don't have the projection for the capacities itself. We have the projection of the demand, and the capacities and their mix is the result of the assumptions and policies and measures which are included in every of the scenarios. So there are not a large differences between the overall number of capacities. It's like 38 gigawatts by 2030 in VAMP scenario and 41 gigawatt in VAM, but already by in this small difference there lies a difference in solar and wind and flexible capacities.
And what do you take to go to 41? What are the main assumptions? Is the fact that people like that left will come back, that the reconstruction will require to rebuild first what is needed for the peak today, 18 or 19 gigawatts, but also to build more, to have more capacity? How do you assess? Because I know that before the full scale invasion, all the capacities that were built were not necessarily used, and so the question is, how now you like this number of 41 gigawatt, for instance? What are the assumptions? Thanks.
So regarding the people who return, we don't have difference in this assumption between scenarios. So the demographic forecast is the same for VAM and VAM, and the difference mostly lies in the number of policies and measures, and the carbon tax, which forces to invest in more low carbon power sources. And like in the VAM scenario, we can see even some new coal capacities, maybe not by 2030, but onwards. And in VAM capacities, it's not the case in VAM capacities. So in VAM scenario, only wind, solar, gas capacities are introduced because the natural gas can then be switched for the biomethane. So it's only the mix of policies and measures described in the NECP, basically.
Thank you, Andriy. Are there any more questions in the audience? Please signal to me by raising the virtual hand or typing into the chat box, please. Just a quick moment to give you some more time to volunteer with questions. All right, I don't see any hands. Hopefully there are no questions or there is more of interest to the document. Let me remind you that the document itself in draft is published officially on the website of the Ministry of Economy. It is in Ukrainian. It is also available as unofficial translation. We shared with you the text. If you did not receive or would like to receive it, please signal to us and we'll be happy to send you the unofficial translation into English. And Thank you so very much for joining us this morning and having this presentation. Hopefully you will have more interest, questions, and also willingness for the roadshows and future pilot projects as well. Thanks to the UK government and the FCDO for supporting the effort, and thanks to the Ministry of Economy for also making this possible. Thank you all very much and have a wonderful day.